Good evening. A warm welcome to every one of you, and thank you so much for attending. This evening's question and answer session is a part of a drive by St Helena Chevening Alumni to engage and promote the new ministerial system of government to the island's youth. The project, which is funded by the FCDO, is supported by Dax Richards, Pamela Constantine, Sadella Young, Tracy Williams, Tara Wortley, and Gareth Drabble. This group has been helping the youth understand the impact of changes, increase their awareness of the upcoming elections, and also keeping them better informed. The students playing an active part in this evening's debate are sat on my left-hand side, and we thank them for being here. These students will be asking questions and supplementary questions of our election candidates who sat on the right-hand side of the room. Because of the historically large number of candidates that are running in this year's general elections, it has been necessary to split them into 3 random groups and to debate a minimum of 3 random questions. And candidates, we thank you for attending. Before we get stuck into this evening's event, we would like to thank Shaw St Helena, who is sponsoring the Chevening project with the Facebook live stream and showing the question and answer session on channel 31. And we thank also Sam's Radio for the live coverage, and we trust all of you at home are listening to us. We have a few rules of debate, or rules of engagement, or as somebody's called it, our etiquette. First of all, as we move along, those of you who are speaking, and you've finished speaking, please move away from the microphone because the camera can then shoot the angles of the people sitting next to you. Please don't tilt the microphones because they'll fall over, so they're quite fragile. All of the questions this evening have been raised by the students. The questions have been randomly selected for each group of candidates, and each question must be answered by a minimum of 3 candidates. Well, that's what we're hoping. When you're going to answer, so the question will be asked. Let's give you an example. The question is going to be asked by Josh, an open question, question number 1. And 3 candidates can respond to that one at a time. So if you would like to respond, just raise your hand and we'll get you. And each candidate will have a maximum of 3 minutes to respond. Once candidate 1 has answered the question, we'll move on to candidate 2 and then candidate 3. However, we will not allow any repeat responses. So if candidate 1 has given a response, if candidate 2 is thinking along the same lines, they may say, yes, I agree, but I would like to add this further, or if you disagree, then add that bit as well. If the students have supplementary questions, they will be making their own notes, and they will ask those supplementary questions to you after you've answered this question 3 times. 3 candidates have responded. You will find that the time we choose the answer, you'll find at times we will ask you 4 candidates to respond. It just depends on who wants to put their hand up and volunteer. And whilst we're limiting the question answering to 3 minutes, if a question is being enthusiastically debated, we will allow additional time. If a question has been answered 3 times, but you would like to add something more to your response, then just raise your hand and you can request to do so. So, if it's all clear, I think it should be all clear. If it's not, we can readjust as we go along. But can we start with our first question? And our first question is going to be asked by Laura.
What is motivating you to run for council?
So, candidate Henry?
Well, I think, Laura, if you have read my vision last week, there's 2 prime things that I'm campaigning for, and one of them is the current health of our population, and the other is the current utilities costs and the effects it is having on our own economy.
Yeah, our second candidate, Councillor Brooks, candidate Brooks.
Hi, Laura. I think, Laura, for me, it is just a genuine concern around where we stand now and what's going to be moving forward. For people like yourselves coming up, you know, young adults. So for me, that is really the main core of why I'm standing, to be in a better position to do something.
And candidate Essex.
Thank you. This is not the first time that I've stood for election. And my motivation had always been the same, which is to do the best to try and help St Helena and help its people and create sustainable development on St Helena, not just for those of us that are sitting around this table or even you young people opposite, but your children and your grandchildren in the future. Thank you.
Students, do we have any supplementary questions?
For candidate Essex, can you indicate what you think you have achieved during the term of your previous council?
It depends on what area you're focusing on, because a lot's been achieved in a variety of areas. One achievement, for example, was getting the social benefits review completed, and some of those recommendations are actually going into implementation very shortly. One of the biggest problems that was encountered previously was the definition of families and individuals. So in some instances, a young unemployed person, for example, couldn't get benefits because he was living with his auntie, when in fact his auntie was not responsible for him in any way. And that sort of anomaly is now being addressed. So that's just one example. In education, we managed to fight for more resources to enable people to go to university on scholarships. We've also revamped the apprenticeship scheme so that it's hopefully more meaningful and more beneficial for young people when they first leave school before they go into the workplace. So that's just two examples, and my 3 minutes must be just about up. So thanks, Jamie, for the question.
Okay, question number 1. Can we move on to question number 2? Josh.
What are your thoughts on the youth of the island?
Yes, Candidate Fowler.
The reason for me running for council is because I'm very, what is the word, that I really want to build a foundation for our youth. There's a lot more we can do and build opportunities for them. You know, you're our future, so we need to make it right from the get-go.
And our second candidate? Candidate Fowler.
Hello everyone. To be honest, I don't think right now there's no future for our youth. I am really scared that there's no opportunities there for you. I'm concerned that you're leaving the island after you finish school. I'm concerned about our education system. So for me, the youth and your future doesn't look promising right now. Thank you.
And Candidate Williams.
Hi. So along the same lines, I too would like to push for a better education system here on the island, so that people can achieve their degrees here on Ireland without having to go away. So have a better university type education system, so that everyone who has achieved the level that is required can have the opportunity to get a degree here on Ireland without just the chosen 3 or 4 being sent away. That is what I would love to see here on the island.
Okay, on 3 substantive answers. Any supplementary questions?
Why haven't any of the candidates come into school to talk about their manifestos?
Councillor Williams?
So that is something that I didn't think of. I would love to have the opportunity still. We have a few days, and if I'm invited to come to Prince Andrew School, I will be there.
Candidate Fowler, you.
Okay, so I've been talking to people individually. So if I'm obviously not coming across to everybody, then I will have to come into school and speak with you. So we can make that as an arrangement.
Any additional supplementary questions?
How will you engage with the youth on island affairs going forward?
to involve the youth more, to engage their ideas and any decisions that are going through the process, ensure that we've got you all on board, that we got the youth, right from the beginning. We welcome your ideas in any decisions that are being made.
Anything additional? No? That was question number 2. Oh, yes, yeah, no, certainly. Yeah.
I think some of you will be aware that there was an attempt to establish a youth parliament, and councillors did in fact go into Prince Andrew School and have a number of meetings before we had some of the sessions with the youth parliament. And Councillor Thomas worked very hard to try and stimulate interest in that. And I would certainly hope to see, regardless of whether I'm re-elected or not, that the new council would pursue that and would actually build on the foundations that were laid, because I think that that was beneficial. And the debates that we had with some of you were of a very high quality and showed that you, as young people, were interested in the topics that were being discussed and were able to present good arguments for and against certain issues. So that's certainly something that I would hope would get re-established with the new government.
Okay. Question number 3. Hannah.
What are your opinions on vaccinating under 18s?
Candidate Williams.
So, Hannah, I do not know enough about this vaccination. We as an island need to be more educated about it so that we can understand whether our children should be vaccinated as well. When I say children, I mean 18 and under. Until we have that education, applied to us, if you like, then for me personally, I don't know. I don't have any children under 18, but if I did, I would be fighting for such information because we all need to be protected. But indeed, if there is something else that we need to know on the other side of the fence, that needs to be applied as well. Until we know more about this vaccination, then there's not a lot that we can say. But I think we should be educated a lot more about it from our our health system. They should be putting it out for us and finding out more about it for us.
Candidate Young.
I've not been vaccinated, and I choose not to be. The facts from the United Kingdom says there's 470-something people who's had brain blockages, and out of the 477, 44 has died. And so I wasn't rushing into this kind of situation at the moment as a safe haven here, and I still, from my point of view, wouldn't rush into youngsters having a vaccination. Thank you.
Candidate Brooks.
Hi, everyone. My advice to you, because you're young adults with bright minds, is to start doing your own research. We have internet here, although it's limited, but you can get on and you can start reading documents, reports, and doing your own research. Then you can have conversations among yourselves. Somebody might find out something that somebody else didn't. But it is for us as a community to educate ourselves and make our own choices as we go forward. So my advice to you is to try and learn as much as you can on your own before you start absorbing that advice from our governments and our leaders. Thank you.
Okay. Candidate Fowler.
Okay, so I think it is important that you listen to the science. The science is evolving all the time, but as a parent myself, I want to ensure that my daughter is protected or my son is protected. So it is debate that is going on internationally at the moment, but it's listening to the science and what the healthcare professionals is telling us, and ultimately making the best decision for yourselves, but also in knowing that you're also protecting the community also by being vaccinated, you know, in terms of not having community spread or an outbreak on St Helena. Thank you.
Okay. Any supplementary questions, students?
How do you feel about reducing quarantine and opening up St Helena?
Candidate Brooks?
Well, before I could answer that question, I would want to see the benefits of opening up St Helena. So there's always pros and cons. Obviously, we need to weigh up the both before we can make decisions. So it's a hard question to answer unless somebody put a piece of paper in front of me and say that we're going to attract X amount of tourists and make so much money. First of all, I have to decide, is it worth it? So it's all about the benefits of the pros and the cons.
Thank you. Candidate Henry?
Just to add on to what Mark is saying there, we have to be very careful about how we spin in information about the pros and cons with opening up St Helena. We have to be careful about, we're not comparing it to where we are flying in people once a week. We have to be careful that the number of people we actually can get here in a year is really worth it, and how much money is actually spent compared to how much money it would cost us as a community if COVID had a spread here. That's not to say that I'm against opening up St Helena. There will be a time when we have to, but it is just, we have to be very careful about the data, because I think over the last few weeks I've heard a few numbers spin around and I don't quite agree with them. Like Mark was saying there, we have to actually do the calculations per person and what it is really worth, rather than just putting the spin on what we think.
Yeah. Candidate Fowler, you?
Yes, so again, I think we need to listen to the science, listen to what our medical professionals is telling us here. And at this current time, they're saying that we cannot deal with a community outbreak. So how do we open up St Helena again with trying to protect our community? So if you read my manifesto, my suggestion was that we encourage digital nomads to come here, because we can still keep our quarantine as it is at the moment, but they would still be able to come to St Helena because their job is working from home. So it's still another way of bringing new monies to St Helena. What we have to remember is, and that's why I want people to think about, is that tourism alone brought in 2.5 million, if I'm right, Mr. Financial Secretary, and there was new money that was generated. So I don't want people to close the doors, but I'm also very concerned about our community. But also, like I say, just listen to the science and listen to what our health professionals is telling us right now, because if they're saying they can't cope with it, then we know what the answer is. Thank you.
Any additional supplementary questions?
If you don't think it's a good idea to open the island, how will this affect those who are dependent on the tourism sector?
Candidate Fowler?
So we all know the tourism sector has suffered, and they're still suffering in our hospitality sector, our tour operators. You know, it is really a sad scene at the moment that's happening. So again, that's the question for all of us, really. If whoever, when we get elected, whoever get elected, what are we going to do? If we don't open the borders, then how are we going to solve this problem? You know, what is the next steps? I think that's a key issue to address.
Candidate Essex?
It's basically a case of trying to strike a balance, because at the moment we know the hospitality section, the tourism section are really suffering. But if we were to get community spread, it would be all the sectors. that would be suffering, right across the entire island. So it's a question of trying to get the balance right so that actions can be put in place that will help to build tourism in a way that is not going to threaten the island as a whole. And it's not something that's going to be easy to do, but it will be one of the things that the new council will have to tackle going forward. And we've got to also look at the advances that are being made with regard to vaccination and with regard to testing protocols and all those sorts of things. So we're not in the same place that we were 18 months ago when the epidemic first started. And I'm sure that with medical science overseas and so on, things will evolve further. And probably in a year's time, they'll have more reliable vaccines available, for example, which don't have the sort of threats that my friend on my right was talking about earlier. And we're going to have to consistently reassess the situation and make decisions based on what's happening at that point in time as to what is the best way for St Helena going forward. Thank you.
Any additional supplementary questions, students?
If you do open the island up, what other ideas do you have to keep the island safe?
Candidate Fowler?
Okay, I think it's important to note that any pure tourist who wants to come to St Helena, they don't want a quarantine or want a quarantine of 10 days. They would like a quarantine perhaps 2 days, 3 days. And that is the most in the sense. Right now, they're saying if they're double vaccinated, then why do we need to quarantine? Because, you know, it is the norm elsewhere. So I think we're a long way from asking the question or even considering if we're going to open up, because we are at 10 days quarantine and ultimately we're here to protect the community. So, yeah, it is a hard one, but that is the facts right now. Thank you.
Candidate Brooks?
I think as an additional measure, because we're testing adults now, but as far as I know, we're not testing kids below 10. So as an additional measure, I would like to test as many people as I can coming through the airport. I know there's going to be some sort of cutoff level as you get down to babies and stuff, but I think somebody 9 years old can still carry the COVID in. So I think the testing would need to be more stricter, and it would range to more ages.
Okay, thank you. Can we move on to question 4? Jamie.
What are your views of the arrival of the fibre optic cable?
Could you repeat?
What are your views of the arrival of the fibre optic cable?
Candidate Fowler?
I know I'm keen to answer all the questions, but the fibre optic cable is going to bring many opportunities for St Helena. But one thing I think it is important is that we have to get the communications license right first. It has to benefit the people, because if it doesn't benefit the people, then we're just going to be like other islands like Galapagos. We're just going to get left behind. So it has to benefit the people first. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Essex?
I think it's a wonderful opportunity for St Helena, and I hope that people will take advantage of the opportunities that it brings. I think it could attract investment opportunities, which would be actually beneficial to St Helena going forward. But also, like everything else, it has threats attached to it as well, for example, in relation to cyber security and things like that, which is why there's a gentleman on the island right now who is delivering training and raising awareness about how to deal with cyber security. But certainly, in terms of sustainable development, if we can get the benefits from the fibre optic cable that we should be able to get, St Helena should be able to become more self-sufficient and generate more revenue locally through setting up ground stations and things of that nature, which in turn create employment and bring new money into the island. So I think, once again, the EU has delivered something that is really valuable to St Helena.
And Candidate Henry?
I think the one thing we need to also understand about really high-speed communication like this is that it brings down some of the vertical walls that are in place in current industry. So it allows people to put their ideas online and be paid for it without paying all of the middlemen. It's a brilliant opportunity for you guys. It's a brilliant opportunity to get your talent out there directly without have to worrying about managers and all of the organizations that all take a piece of you when you're trying to do something like this. So, you know, I mean, all your guys probably on TikTok and on, I mean, there's a few millionaires now, you know, just from putting something funny on TikTok. So I know there's something sort of minute, but just think about it that way. It tears down all of those walls and allow you to get yourself there and get all of those views and get all of that publicity without anything in the way. So I think it's bar getting it here at the right costs and everything else. The benefits just for us alone, I think, is substantial.
We'll allow the fourth answer, Candidate Brooks.
Right. So I was just going to talk. Yes, I'm not going to talk about too many of the benefits because I'll go way over my 3 minutes. But benefits to education and health is where I see it. But my concern is that, again, like Lisa, I think, said, affordability. So, yes, the cable's here, but until we know the license agreement and stuff, is it going to benefit everyone on the island? So, I mean, I think those things need to come next. I mean, we've got the cable here, but what is the next steps after? How do we get it to everyone? How does everyone pay? Is it going to be like a package system and so on? So I think before we can start looking at the real benefits of the cable, we need to understand how much it's going to cost us.
Thank you. We're going to move swiftly on to the fifth question. Cerise.
Can you tell us about how the island can become more sustainable and green?
Candidate Henry?
I think I best answer this one. This is the basis of my campaign. I mean, first of all, we need to sort our energy out, and it needs to come with a plan. There's no way I can just go on and say, you know, let's throw a few solar panels on the roof and everything's going to be sorted. So we need a strategic plan to get off these fossil fuels that we are currently on and that we are currently importing from, you know, 7,000 miles away at huge expense. And maybe the financial secretary would like to tell you that one. But just the basic costs alone, we could use all that money and put back into our island. I see it as a no-brainer that we work towards this. We also need to get on the back of the current global situation. You know, right now, green technology is the new thing, and there's loads of investors out there. There's loads of people out there who are moving into this market, and we need to get in there early. Coming off fuel is going to be quite hard. I mean, I drive around in a gas guzzler. You know, I wasn't thinking about this when I bought that. But we now know what the future is. And like I said in my vision, why wait until this is starting to come to an end and we're fighting over the last drop of fuel, which is going to be very expensive? Why not jump the gap? We can see it. We got a very small island, and we could create this end to end at a very low cost in comparison to what, you know, cities of that 20, 30 million have to fork out. So just alone, if we focus first of all on our energy costs, we can then bring down the cost of pretty much everything else. And everything else hinges on the back of that, in my opinion.
Thank you, candidate. I will assume that then there's nobody else wanting to respond. Any supplementary questions? Sorry.
How do you think that achieving 100% renewable energy will impact the community and our natural habitat?
I guess it's going to go down to you then, candidate Henry.
Well, like I just said it in the last answer, the benefits are huge, but what it will require is that change in mindset. We're all, in one way or the other, we're all sort of plumbed into the current the current system we have, and we will rely on it. We need to, but there's now enough technology and the cost is becoming lower and lower pretty much every month, not even every year, that we can fix every single gap. So we need to start with how do we power our homes, and then we need to work into how do we power our vehicles, and then how do we power all of our sub-machinery, like the swimmers and everything else. And right now, they're pretty much, there's technology there to power everything. So the effects on the community must first will be only on the back of a change in mentality, and that's what I hope to start pushing to see if we can move into that direction.
Thank you. No further supplementary? Yes. Okay, Josh, go.
This is a little bit off topic, but what are you going to do to protect our exclusive economic zone, EEZ?
Candidate Essex, yes?
There is legislation in place already that is aimed to protecting our marine environment, and we do work very closely with international organisations that collect scientific data and so on. So we have got, for example, total allowable catches for most species to ensure that our waters don't get overfished, and we've got personnel in place to actually see that those regulations are enforced. So there are measures that are already in place, but that's not to say that as time goes on, those won't need to be amended, adjusted, and reviewed in the light of new circumstances, particularly in relation to the impacts of climate change on the marine environment and marine species.
Thank you. Candidate Brooks?
I think we can also help by what we do on island, because a lot of the stuff that we throw away on island ends up in the sea anyway. So I think more recycling, probably separating plastics out of normal rubbish so it doesn't go to landfill, gets recycled. I also think that development plays a big part. So, for instance, there's just been a development started at Rubit's, the whole port development. But the rainwater and the rainwater that runs down through there is still going to be running across the bridge and out to the sea. I would like to see that built in that development, some sort of filtration. So, and like I think they are putting in some sort of digestive thing around there, but it's mainly for the sewers. I would like to see something like that for the run too, so that not just in the Rubits, but in any development, so that most of the plastics and the dangerous material that's going into the sea is filtered out before it even reaches the sea.
Thank you. Okay, that ends the first part of our debate, our question and answer session. 5 questions from our students on my left here. That's Cerise, Josh, Jamie, Laura, Hannah, Brooke, and Amy. So please give them a round of applause for being here. They are now going to be replaced by, or a couple of them are going to be replaced. And we're also going to replace our candidates on my right. So please give them a round of applause as well.